This was a test series with more twists and turns than a 1960s dance hall. It was a test series that handed the summer crown back to cricket, with record crowds and record TV audiences. A 3-1 result to Australia and the Border-Gavaskar trophy for the first time in a decade, as well as a spot in the World Test Championship final against South Africa in June. Yet the scoreline does not give a true indication of the challenge laid down by India right up till the last hour. In the end, too much was left to too few. Jasprit Bumrah's inability to bowl in Australia's second innings the difference. It was volatile, it was physical, it was loud, it was captivating. But most of all, it was entertaining. Test careers were born. Sam Konstas and Beau Webster for Australia, and the next wave of India's superstars was set in motion. Yashasvi Jaiswal and Nitish Kumar Reddy. And Australia waved goodbye to one of India's all-time greats, Virat Kohli, who will almost certainly never play on our shores again, and Rohit Sharma, who may never play red ball cricket again for his country. A deserved player of the series in Bumrah with 32 wickets. Pat Cummins not far behind with 25 wickets and 159 runs. And the re-emergence of an old favourite, 35-year-old Scott Boland, the match winner with 10 wickets in Sydney, and surely now a lock for the Ashes next summer. And just when the storylines looked like they were drying up, in comes Steve Smith, who was dismissed on 9,999 test runs. Well, welcome Jackson Barrett, senior cricket writer for the West Australian.
Hello, Quarters. How are you?
Good, and in keeping with the entire series, that final session in Sydney had us all on the seat of our pants, probably till about the last maybe 30 minutes, and we knew it was probably done.
Yeah, I think the real crunch time was maybe half an hour before the last 20 minutes, where it was kind of, I think when Beau Webster came in, that was kind of the crunch time. If they got Webster or they got Head early, then India were really going to open the door. But once Webster got settled, they were pretty comfortable. And another pretty special test. I don't know what we do with ourselves now that the test summer's over, because it's been epic.
I actually woke up this morning and went to turn the telly on.
Just reflex.
Yeah, reflex action. And went,
Channel 7.
No. So let's talk about a couple of things. Firstly, Bumrah, we'll never know.
No.
But if Bumrah bowls that last session or that last day, we still don't know whether we would have the Border-Gavaskar trophy in our keeping.
I think India, it's a fascinating subject. I reckon India come bloody close.
Yeah, I do too.
If they've got Bumrah, because that deck was really, really difficult to bat on. Really, really difficult to face bowlers that were able to just plug away at that length and let the ball do the work. And we spoke about it last week. I've written about it heaps and again today. But we've asked all series, what would India do without Bumrah? We asked it from their first
Well, I'll tell you what they did for a while there was okay.
Yeah.
So I thought the Siraj stepped up, Prasad stepped up, so I thought it was a pretty good effort.
It was okay. I don't think they started overly well. Like Konstas and even Khawaja being a little bit more aggressive put them off their lines a little bit. They sprayed a few wide. And then I just don't think they were as relentless as Australia were on their length. Like Cummins and Boland took basically all their wickets by hitting a 5-metre difficult length and letting the ball do the work. And India just I don't think whether it was the control or the patience to do it. I don't think Krishna and Mohammad Siraj did quite a good enough job. They spent too much time trying to go short to Travis Head. They bowled okay. They took some good wickets. But I just think with Bumrah, they're going to crack that door open a little bit more.
Absolutely. I sort of did my sums and I thought 200 not going to chase down with Bumrah.
Yeah.
I thought 150 they probably would, and it was around about that. So they did it comfortably in the end, but that was sort of like a little, almost an outlier for the series, just that last little bit. Scott Boland, what a return, particularly in this test. Obviously, he'd like to just dig up that pitch, take it wherever he goes, but the Indians apparently spent much longer in their prep discussing him than anyone else.
You would have to, I imagine. I think the incredible thing with Scotty Boland is, burst onto the scene like that 21 Ashes was one of the more incredible things that we've ever seen. And then he played some good cricket along the way. But then he was first choice for the World Test Championship final in 2023 and the first test of the Ashes at Edgbaston. And then they made the change and brought Hazelwood back in. And it kind of felt like that might almost be it for Scott. He'd had one test in India where he hadn't taken a wicket. And then
The Poms get after him too at one
yeah,
stage.
they did. They really went up. Like Bazball, they kind of picked him as a bowler they could take down. So it became really difficult to see how he was going to come back in. And then, of course, the door opens again, and he's still 30. He's 35, Scott Boland.
Yeah.
And he's
But
still doing this, which is incredible.
he's steaming in. I mean, he hasn't had a lot of international cricket as such. So I wonder what age he can go to. I'm thinking he can bowl till about 38.
I think he probably could. Like he's been pretty versatile. I know he's battling with a couple of like knee and foot issues this year, but one thing that has been noted this week as well is that he actually hasn't played like 150 games of Shield, 200 games of Shield cricket either, because when he first came in, he was behind Pattinson, Siddle, a few other. Like he hasn't been a Shield regular for that long. He has been for quite a few years, but it's not an 18-year Shield career where he's playing every game. So I think he's probably got another couple of summers left in him, Scott Boland, and he appears to have that drive, as he would when you debut at 32, and kind of life begins from there.
Konstas, another couple of 20s and a really aggressive start to the second innings, which I think we needed just to get, we didn't want to be 2 for 5 or something. So I think it was a good start, impetuous shot, but to get out, but then... I mean, that's just the way they were playing, but I think he's done enough to keep his spot for at least a while.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see if they have a look at him in Sri Lanka. If they decide that that's the sort of player that they need, they're going to put a really big emphasis on really adept players of spin.
So Hanscom.
So Hanscom's one. Don't be surprised if Josh Inglis, even if it's as a specialist bat, is another. That low centre of gravity, good through the wrist, like that sort of player. There's been talk of Travis Head opening, but I think they probably look at this Konstas thing now and go, like, let's just play like that everywhere. And if they do that, I could see Khawaja, who is a good player of spin traditionally, and Konstas opening the batting in Gaul at the end of the month. I think with Konstas, there was an argument that, like, mate, you've spread the field, you didn't need to play that shot. And that's true to a point, but when do you stop? Like, you're sent out there to play with that sort of mindset. At what point do you go, okay, well, I've got 4 on the fence now. Do I just stop? I mean, he was caught skying a ball. He wasn't caught on the fence. So.
I have no problem with the way it happened. I mean,
no, neither.
I think he set the tone, which he needed to. So we saw Mitch Marsh come out and Beau Webster come in. A really seamless test debut, I thought. Took some really good catches in the first innings. Unlucky not to get a wicket. Got a wicket in the second innings, and in both innings, particularly in the first innings when it was really, really tough out there, and came in at a difficult time in the second innings and just got the head down. I think when I say found one, he's 31.
Yeah. Well, imagine if I told you at the start of the summer that it would be Beau Webster hitting the winning runs at the SCG. You probably wouldn't believe me. No. But I mean, this is a great story. This is
slug from Snug.
The slug. This is a Sheffield Shield stalwart who used to bowl a bit of off spin and bat in the top 3, and then he kind of slid down the order and he batted at 6. And I think there was a school of thought that batting 6 for Tasmania might not be the best audition ever for the Test side, but he just got better and better and better. His Sheffield Shield season, not this season, last season, was quite remarkable. 900 runs, 30 wickets. Only Garfield Sobers had done that before, which is a decent name to be compared to. His Shield stuff has been quite incredible. He deserved this opportunity, and I think that the big upside was his ability to bowl 13 overs. Like, you know what? Like Mitch Marsh, if he was in some better nick, can play innings like that, but he's never been able to bowl 13 overs. And that's the difference that Webster brings. He's a really good slip fieldsman. He's got massive, massive hands, obviously. It's been highlighted this week. Mm-hmm. So gully fieldsman, slip fieldsman, he's really, really good. He does it all. Cummins said it last night. He's one of those guys that you genuinely feel like can impact all facets of the game.
Well, Sri Lanka, you can bowl seam and then some off spin. So I think he's almost the perfect.
I think he's going to play a really key role for a couple of reasons with the ball. One of them is on decks like that, you can sometimes have to bowl some really workhorse overs. And if Australia just take the 2 seamers, play the 2 seamers, which we probably expect them to, then Webster's seam up stuff could be, one, pretty challenging, and also he could be asked to bowl a lot of overs. But then he gives them, with his offies, just another option. And they're tall offies, different trajectory, can be really difficult to play. He's probably not going to spin the ball as much as other guys. It looks like it'll be Lyon, Quartermain and Murphy going over. There's a bit of talk about potentially Cooper Connolly landing in that squad as well. They took Glenn Maxwell last time. They're kind of comparable players at the moment. So I think Webster could be, a really crucial part of that series. He could bat 6, bowl seam up, bowl some spin, and take some good catches.
Pat Cummins, my pick for second in line for player of the series. I thought they got it bang on right with Jasprit Bumrah. I think he was the player who really had an impact more often than any other player, and really carried his side. So Pat was wonderful, got the key wickets at the right moments, but had some help. I don't think Bumrah had the same help. I would have probably Travis Head behind that, and then maybe Steve Smith for a couple of tons as well. Pat Cummins, so likely, there's every chance he'll miss Sri Lanka, at least the first test. His wife is due to have their second child around that time. What do they do? So Boland's obviously a lock. Stark's a lock. But what else do we do? Is Hazelwood going to be fit? Does Jai Richardson slot in there? What does the attack look like in Sri Lanka?
I don't know if Hazelwood would be fit. For me, they're probably the 4 that travel. I think they would take 4 and most likely play 2. I think that Stark and Boland left arm, right arm, swing and seam combination is probably the way to go. Stark, see what you can get out of a new ball. You're probably not going to get a hell of a lot. And then you've got Boland who can come in and bash away.
Couple of spinners.
There's a chance that if Hazelwood's fit, it's Hazelwood and Boland. I don't know. They're pretty like for like. So I like the left arm, right arm. But Hazelwood will be around the mark. And let's not forget Hazelwood was probably one of the better bowlers in the world, maybe second behind Bumrah for the calendar year. So he will find a way back into Australia's side before too long. And then the spinners, Australia had Todd Murphy and Matt Kuhnemann spend time around the group in the Sydney Test. So that's a decent indication that they're the 2 at the front of the pecking order, at the front of the queue. So I'd say that the 3 spinners will be Lyon, Kuhnemann and Murphy. Murphy not dissimilar to Lyon, Kuhnemann left arm orthos, so it gives them something different. Means, and I wrote about this week, but Corey Rocacholi appears...
Your boy.
My boy, good WA boy, has had 2 excellent Sheffield Shield seasons. The leading wicket taker among spinners for the last 2 seasons. It looks like he's going to be overlooked. I think it's a bit of a snub. I think he's bowled really well. You
can't fit them all in, though.
You can't fit them all in, but I'd argue he's probably had better years than Murphy, better 2 years than Murphy and Kuhnemann.
Okay.
But Kuhnemann I like because he's left arm. Anyway, so I think that's probably how they'll go there. So that's how that attack look. And then I'm really interested, we touched on Webster, but how they go with the all-rounders as well. So I took Maxi last time. Is it Connolly to bat 8, to bat 7 with a Kerry slide up, that sort of thing? I'd love to say that. He's the informed player in the Big Bash. I know they don't put an awful lot of weight on Big Bash.
Not much else to call on
Big Bash
evidence
form,
at the moment.
What else are you
No
looking
red
at?
ball cricket.
So, I think he'd be a decent chance.
Just before we get on to India, just Steve Smith. There's always something around Steve Smith.
Yeah.
So leaves us dangling on 9999. I knew that was going to happen.
I remember earlier in the test
It's a good
when he...
nut too. Not much you could do
It's
about
good
it.
ball. When he was dismissed in the nervous 9,990s for the first time, they brought up those stats about the guys that have done it twice.
Pretty good elite company, yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of them had done it twice. And I remember just looking at that and going, we could be on for that here. It's obviously my fault because I'd started writing a story about him scoring 10,000 runs.
Always happens, Jacko.
So
Always
you
happens.
Put that one down to me.
Okay.
It would have been nice at the SCG. I think there was enough happening on Sunday for us to kind of go, oh, well, that's all right. But it is disappointing for Steve that he will miss out on doing it at his hometown and get to do it in front of a castle and a couple of punters in goal.
Any of the top order vulnerable? Labuschagne, Khawaja, see nice knock just to fight.
Khawaja is going forward.
Yeah.
He'll play in Sri Lanka because he's a good player of spin and you're not getting enough. The risk reward isn't enough out of blooding someone else in Sri Lanka. Like if you send a McSweeney or someone over,
which probably means he goes to. And let's not forget, we have now qualified for the World Test Championship. So well done, Australia. That's in June at Lords. There's a couple of tests against the Windies after that, and then we're into a summer here of the Ashes.
Yeah, I think he probably plays there. I think Labuschagne is probably the next most vulnerable. If they were to run some sort of a shuffle of the middle order in Sri Lanka to get like an Inglis or a Hanscom in, I feel like Labuschagne might be the one that's vulnerable. But I can also see him picking up where he left off by the time they get to England and then the West Indies later in the year and then back home for an Ashes.
Just before we get on to India, I want to mention what I thought was a snub. So the presentation of the Border-Gavaskar trophy. There's Alan Border, as he should be, up on the dais. Sonny Gavaskar not invited for whatever reason, standing metres away under an umbrella. Now, I didn't like it. I thought it was arrogant of Australia, and I don't see why he shouldn't be up there as well presenting it. If both players are in the vicinity, for God's sake, it's named after them. Get him up there. It's respect.
I agree that because he was there, there was no reason not to have him involved. But I must admit, I don't find it offensive that he wasn't. I mean,
why?
I wouldn't expect Alan Border to be presenting it in India.
But he might not be there.
He might not be there, but he has been previously. And yeah, Sonny's like been here right from the start. He landed a couple of days out from the Perth test and saw it through. So I think he should have been involved, but I don't think it's a massive snub. I mean, I would say that part of it is the event planning, like the clunkiness of having two guys hand over the trophy.
Nah.
The Glendinning Allen medal here for the Derby. It's at each team's home game.
You can't compare them. There's not billions of people watching this, and I just think...
But it's each team's home game, or is it the winning team?
If Alan Border's in India, he should be there as well. I think they both should be there to present it if they're both available.
I agree, ideal well. I just don't think it's... I didn't like an outrage.
I was wondering why the hell he's not up there. But anyway, we'll move on. So India, Virat Kohli. Now... The only incident that really concerned me was the shoulder charge. I don't mind the verbals. In fact, in the end, I kind of grew to love him again, with the little sandpaper.
You like the sandpaper?
So what? I don't mind the verbal stuff on the ground.
Yeah.
It's the shoulder charge I didn't like, and I think he got off quite meekly.
Yeah.
However, I think it was a weird series because, as we spoke about, he went from being like the farewell tour where Siraj became the villain, and I can tell you Kohli definitely by the end, and almost loved it, fed off it.
Yeah.
Maybe he was drawing all the animosity towards him and away from his teammates. I'm not sure what his rationale was, but it wasn't a great, apart from a very good ton here in Perth, wasn't a great series. I think he goes on.
Yeah.
We won't see him here again. I'd be very, very surprised. Him and Sharma surprised me. Like, there's no retirement there either. There was the rested for the final test in inverted commas. He wasn't rested, clearly.
No. Yeah, I'd say writing was on the wall for Rowett as far as this test goes. With Kohli, it was really interesting to track how that went. And I felt like he was a villain right until the moment that he walked off the SCG and then he got a standing ovation, which I think was nice. It is his last test innings. I think the sandpaper stuff is just like fairly childish humour.
I think, so do I. What though?
It's shit.
It's not. It's not good. It's funny.
No, again, I don't take offence. I don't think anyone needs to be taking offence to it, but it's just it's just not that funny.
Yeah, but we do that stuff. We're the kings of it.
Yeah, a little bit. Oh, yeah, I mean, Virat, he had a stinker. But I just loved the soap opera of he was the king, then he was the villain again, and then right on the last day when it's all on the line, suddenly he's the captain. Yeah, this guy who hasn't captained for 3 years or whatever has just ended up captaining his country again as the third string option. So he's just right at the centre of it. He's at the centre of the Konstas stuff. I didn't love the charging off at the non-striker. I just think it's
you mean Konstas over the...
Yeah. I'm just more into a send-off's a send-off, but celebrate with your teammates. You've charged up at this guy who actually hasn't done a hell of a lot wrong because he's still batting.
There was a bit of chirp, though. There was a bit of chirp. I just want Konstas to... I don't mind a bit of it, as I said, but he's very young in his test career. I wouldn't mind him. I mean, I understand the Khawaja milking the clock so that there's not another over. I think he did that. It was quite blatantly obvious, and India had every right to be annoyed at that. And a few words, you just cop it and you move on. I'm just not sure why Konstas...
I think if you're Konstas in that moment, it's more of he's coming into this side and clearly trying to make an impression. And
it reminds me of someone a few years ago. Cam Bancroft.
Steve Bancroft, okay. Yeah. I think it's just you're playing with these guys, they're your new teammates, one of them's under siege, you're just going into bat. I can completely see how that happens. Yeah, I think there will be a balance with Konstas over the next 18 months or 2 years in the infancy of his test career. around not being distracted, like keeping that personality, which has come and said, like, they want guys to bring themselves. Like, he's obviously got the shoulders puffed back and that sort of thing. But there'll be a balance between not getting distracted and showing that personality that he'll need to find over the next couple of years.
Well, you need to point out Kohli, one of the great performers on Australian soil and away from India too. So what a wonderful career. I'm a fan. If every now and then I smash him, it's because of his. As I said, I don't like that physical stuff that happens. That was really, really poor. The India, I feel like there's a lot of questions still coming out of their team too. I think we saw some stuff. I thought Siraj in patches, like he bowls the odd one that's way off whack, but I think he's showed a bit this. I think Reddy, we saw the start of a great career there. Jaiswal, I wanted to see him make a ton. I saw him make one in Perth. I think he had some great moments in this series as well. So there was a lot to like. There's a lot of, it seems like there's transition in their spinning department. I'm not sure what is happening there. So it's a lot of questions.
I think this was going to be a series of mass transition for India at the start of it. Remember KL Rahul, ideal world, is probably not playing for them. He certainly wasn't in their plans at the start of the series. They had like Dhruv Jurel, Devdutt Padikkar ready to go in Perth.
Wonderful, I thought.
And he ended up being their best batter of the series. So it could have been mass change. Obviously, Ashwin has moved on in the spin side of things. Fascinating that, the SCG wicket probably just wasn't what they expected. I wouldn't have picked Jadeja and Sundar in Sydney. I would have reverted back to bowl the extra quick or probably the extra batter or whatever, because Sundar didn't bowl an over in the second innings. So, those two guys are in an interesting position where they're effectively both all-rounders. So what they do there will be fascinating. Yeah, they wouldn't have expected Ashwin to go. They probably wouldn't have expected the cliff to come quite this quickly for Rohit Sharma. So there's going to be mass change.
Does he play another test for India?
Look, I don't think so.
So Bumrah, and what's Bumrah's status? It's a side strain, they're telling us, not stress fractures of the lower back?
Yeah, it looks like it might be a side.
Well, that's good news. So that means we don't want him ruled out for any lengthy term, because what a wonderful bowler, what a wonderful cricketer. He will be their next Test captain.
Yeah, and a really good captain. Like he was so much more proactive than Rohit, and their best sessions in the field were with Bumrah as captain. There's no doubt about that in Perth and in Sydney.
As far as the Test series go, it's got to be one of. Well, before we talk about that, the Sydney pitch.
Yeah,
this Sydney pitch is unlike a Sydney pitch I've seen.
It wasn't a good pitch.
No.
It certainly proves that it wasn't being doctored to suit the Australians, because they would have liked a highway that they could bat on for 3 days and settle on a draw. So, or at least, the match be leaning towards a draw, going deep. So, yeah, it wasn't a great wicket. It had a lot for the bowlers. It was fun. But we need to see Tests stretching out beyond 4 days before we can rate a wicket good. It certainly would have been fun to bowl some seam up on. But really difficult for batting, and it didn't get that balance quite right.
It feels like it was a good wicket for the 5th Test stage. It gave us something else.
Yeah. There was another element.
This is a series that gave us, I think, I can't remember a series like it. I can remember Test series where there was a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But there was every session almost, there was either an incident or someone making a ton or a series of rain. It was a wonderful series.
I don't remember a Test series captivating Australia like this outside of, I reckon, the 06-07 Ashes series, which I was a kid for, but you had Gilly, you had like the end of this great team bouncing back from the 05 loss. And then the 13-14 Ashes where Mitch Johnson, who'd been injured and maligned, suddenly had this worldie of a series, and we picked the same 11 players in each 5 tests and that sort of thing. I remember the nation being captivated by those 2 series, but nothing like this before. Nothing where it was front and back pages. It's front and back page again today. It's dominating. It's got resonancy on TVs, and almost every interesting person will have a passing knowledge of the cricket because it's just front and centre. And I think those summers are really, really special, and I hope we get more of them. I hope the Ashes is the same.
Well, actually, we'll show my age here a bit, but it actually reminds me of the 70s, particularly the mid-70s, when you had Lillian Thompson just going nuts. The Windies were just starting to evolve as they weren't starting, but they were becoming a real weapon. And so it reminds me that those days everyone was talking cricket in the summer, and I really hope that this is the first summer of many. And obviously we've got the Ashes next year. It's going to be just as captivating. So I really hope this is the resurgence because, let's be honest, cricket has lost its way a bit in our summer.
Yeah.
There's so much more for people to look, more eyeballs on other things. So this could be the series that sort of returns Australia to its, other sports, but rightful spot as the king of summer.
Yeah, I hope so. It certainly felt that way. And I think it's perfect timing having the Ashes next year to capitalise on. And the other thing that's worth remembering, and I know it's not readily available on free-to-air and that sort of thing, but 2 tests in Sri Lanka against Sri Lanka. They're a decent side
They are
at the
a
moment.
bloody good side. They've probably got the most, Mendes, probably one of the most informed batsmen in the world at the moment.
Jayasuriya, excellent spin bowler. So it's going to be a really, really big challenge on those decks, and it's being pumped into Australia at prime time as well. So I'm really looking forward to that.
And we do it with sort of low stress because now we've qualified for the World Test Championship, playing South Africa, who are very gettable in the World Test Championship.
We're going to get to have a look at Konstas, Webster, Boland, what the Ashes side might look like.
It'll be really good. Both tests in Gaul.
Both tests in Gaul.
Beautiful Fort
Great
City.
ground.
So was devastated by the tsunami a few years back. Great to see it back on its feet and hosting Test cricket again. So looking forward to that. Have loved the summer. Have loved your coverage, Jackson. Finding your way through the first 3 days of the Boxing Day Tests ill, but no sign of that.
Everyone's carrying something.
Oh, mate, you showed everything there. You showed me a lot of ticker, but have loved reading your coverage. It's been excellent, and
Thank you,
thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Quarters. Cheers.